Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Daisy Taylor. I've been the finance manager here at Absolute Digital for the past 8 years, and I'll be your host on today's episode of What the Fuck, Work From Home. As I'm sure you're all aware, today is International Women's Day. Therefore, I'm joined by all the incredible women at Absolute Digital Media. So welcome, ladies. Today, we'll be discussing how we got into digital, the industry challenges we've faced, and how we are thriving with more women on the team than ever before. So I'm sure everyone's really excited. Let's head into the first topic of discussion. So getting into digital. Tiff, I'm going to focus on you for this one to start off with. So what advice would you give to people that are looking to get into the industry?
I would say definitely do your own kind of research and your own background kind of learning. And one thing that I've learned about digital is it can be very kind of competitive. So if you're showing that you can do your own learning and that you're self-driven, that would go a long way with companies. And you've also got to be resilient. You know, the job market out there is very competitive. You're not always going to get the job that you're going to go for. So you've just got to take that rejection and just say, do you know what? You know, I believe in myself. I know I can do this, and continue. And you never know, you might get rejected from jobs and it might end up being a good thing because you might actually end up working for the perfect place that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, definitely. I'd add to that as well and just say, like, refine your niche. If you know you're really good at something, then there's going to be a job out there for you as well. So definitely use that to your advantage as well.
So, next question. So, what are your top tips for breaking into the industry?
So for this one, firstly, I'd say just keep yourself like really informed about digital marketing trends. So for example, Google AdWords, SEO, like big branded social campaigns, PR campaigns, because once you know about these, you'll be able to express that on your CV and also talk about them in interviews, which is always like really impressive and like demonstrates your interest in the industry to your employers. Then I'd secondly say, this one seems really obvious, but just get as much practice as you can. So any experience you can get is key. So volunteer for whatever you can. I know it can be quite hard to find it. Like I myself found it really difficult to get my first set of experience. I probably sent out like 50 to 100 applications. You just have to like think outside the box. So if your friend has a business, I don't know, like selling cakes or is a hairdresser, you can volunteer to just run the digital marketing side of things for them or make them an Instagram. And then lastly, I think just make sure you've got a strong online presence. So make your own personal brand strong, get your name out there. So get yourself on Twitter, follow prominent people in the industry, interact with them as much as you can. And also make sure your LinkedIn profile is really up to date and your successes are well documented on there. And finally, make connections on LinkedIn. So obviously don't like add anyone completely random, add people that are relevant to your industry and people you'd want to work with and brands you'd want to work with and stuff. And make sure you personalize that invitation and give some context as to why you want to connect with them. So yeah, I think those were all really good ways to like get yourself out there and potentially break into the industry.
That's great. So Sophie, like we're talking there about experience and gaining experience. So part of that would be obviously training programs. Is there some kind of advice on specific training programs that you would recommend?
There's so many out there and I feel like it's really hard to pinpoint them all because otherwise I would literally be there for hours and hours just listing off like all my favorite ones. I think just generally like a lot of the conferences like Brighton SEO, Reading SEO, I think there's social media summits, PR ones, all of those kind of things are brilliant to get like all of the advice from the industry experts and things like that. But when we're coming down to specific training courses, I know the likes of like SEMrush, HubSpot do some brilliant free ones. So for anyone to really join and like look at those, and they cover things like basic SEO, tech SEO, content marketing, inbound marketing, things like that. And then recently I've been introduced to a company called Udemy. I think that's how you say it, because I've started working through their Python course. So that's really kind of tech heavy, but there's loads of other different elements to that. So I think there's a load of PPC courses on there. I think Sophia and Tiff, you might have done some of those, and some of the UX team have found really valuable as well. So there's so many out there.
Great. So I know as well we were mentioning there about CVs. So Laura, is there anything that you can kind of, you know, pinpoint and say how you would make your CV or application stand out from others?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the digital sphere, there's a lot of skills that we say that we've got, but actually showcasing them in a CV is 100% the best way to get yourself noticed. So I would say creating a creative portfolio where you've got a collection of examples of work. If, for example, you're a content writer, making sure you pull out some like really key pieces of content that you've created. But equally so, like getting quite creative with it. Like this could be a video, this could be a pitch deck, this could be a social media profile. Think outside the box when you're trying to effectively market yourself. Like it's super cringy, but like going into marketing, you've got to be able to talk about yourself. Like you are your sort of passion project in that sense. So really think about how you can put your skills into a demonstrable way, and then like as well put your personality into it. And then again, in terms of like echoing what Layla was saying, make sure that this then kind of is reflected in your own personal social media profiles. So on your Twitter, on your LinkedIn, make sure you are showing that you've got these skills and kind of getting it out there.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, I think it's very much, you can sit there and tell people like I'm great at all of these different things, but it's really about showing it, and that's like really key, especially in digital, because like Tiff was saying earlier, it's such a competitive industry now and there's so many different roles out there. Show what you're so good at, like really put it in people's faces, because that's what's going to get you the roles you want.
100%. And I think it's about knowing that you have got an expertise, you have got something that somebody else hasn't got, and it's about finding how to showcase that and then shout about it in the best possible way.
So I think as well, like a key part of some people getting into digital is by doing a degree or doing an apprenticeship or something along those lines. And obviously here at Absolute, we're really invested in those people that obviously want to progress their careers. So Molly and Heather, how did you get into your apprenticeship and into your apprenticeship marketing?
I'll go first, don't mind, Heather. Joined nearly a year and a half ago now. I originally joined in the sales team doing a business admin course and completing that and helping and supporting that the sales team. From listening to the sales pitches, I gauged like a really good knowledge of just basic SEO, and from that I then become a lot more intrigued about other sides of digital marketing, especially social media and the PR. And then once we developed our own PR team within Absolute, I was lucky enough to be able to move over there, and now I've got a whole new career, which is really exciting, and I can't wait to get into it.
So moving on to you, Heather.
Yeah, so to follow on from what Molly was saying, I too started my journey as an apprentice. This is going back about 6 years, but the skills I learned back then I still use to this day. I think for people starting out their career, it's so important to decide if that is the right career for you, especially in marketing. It's not something that you're like taught at school, so knowing whether it's the right path can be tricky unless you just get stuck in at the deep end. I personally took 2 years out before I went to uni just to do my apprenticeship to decide if it was the right career path for me, and then from there I decided it was. I tailored like my degree to what I knew I wanted to go into, and then from there it was easy, plus I had a bit of money to go to uni with, so it was great.
Sounds exciting. So Holly, I know you're on an apprenticeship as well, so it'll be good to know from you, like, what are your future aspirations, and like where do you see yourself in the future as well?
So my future aspirations are to continue developing my skills within PR and to also finish my apprenticeship. As I've only been in this PR team for about 5 months, I'm really eager to improve. I'm really happy I've been given this opportunity here at Absolute to join the brand new PR team, as I was originally in the SEO team when I first started my apprenticeship, but so far I'm loving PR. I didn't even know what PR was before, so I've kickstarted my career in the best possible way, and I can definitely see myself working in this industry in the future and growing as an individual as well.
Fantastic. So kind of moving slightly on from that, Tiff, have you always been interested in marketing?
Actually, no. I started out in law. I've got an undergrad degree and a master's in law, and that was always what I wanted to do in my life. But I remember when I was at uni, I started doing some kind of like legal placements, and I remember thinking, oh, this is so boring. Like, I actually don't know if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, like paperwork, contracts, you know, finding loopholes and everything. Like, it's just like a job of fully reading. I was like, I really don't know if I can do this. And then when I was doing my master's, I was still doing my dissertation, and I needed a job while I finished my dissertation, and I started working in a complaints department for a digital marketing company. And I started learning like the basics of PPC and SEO and websites and all that sort of stuff. And then that's when I was really like, do you know what? I'm actually really, really enjoying this. And then I had some friends that worked in PPC, and I remember I used to spend my lunches with them, and they would all talk about it. And I was like, do you know what? I actually think this is what I want to do in my life. So I pursued it, and now here I am. And I don't regret it for one moment. Definitely better than legal.
What a journey. That's amazing.
I know, right? Yeah, I started off wanting to be a lawyer, and you end up in digital marketing.
It's true. But I don't think anyone plans to ever fall into marketing. It's just we've all come from completely different backgrounds and different environments. We've all just fallen into this amazing thing, and I don't think anyone regrets it at all. It's just so much fun.
And I think one of the reasons for that is it's expanding so much more. So it's becoming seen as more of like a career. You know, you've got a lot more amazing people that kind of are there to sort of, what's the word, inspire people to go into digital marketing, which is something that, you know, you probably didn't have, you know, 10 years ago when I was looking for a career.
I think it's great as well from you, Tiff, that, you know, you thought you had your career path, you know, set out in front of you, and actually you went after something that you were passionate about. And I think that's really key as well.
I think so, because I think the reason why I prefer like digital marketing over law is because I'm so passionate about it. And it's why I had to work really, really hard, because swapping from legal to digital marketing is a hard thing to do, because they're two completely different fields. And doing that swap was very, very hard. And it was my passion that gave me the determination and the drive to make that change, which can be a scary thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think this brings me on to my next question, which I'll direct to you, Soph, was what do you think are the most valuable attributes of a person that's working in digital?
I think flexibility and adaptability is probably the key thing here, because digital's always changing, and it is quite a new career path. Like we were just saying, it's not something that everyone planned on going into. So you need to, when you are in digital, be able to keep up with the pace. That's so important. And that doesn't matter whether you're in SEO, PPC, whether that's PR, social content, even design development. The trends are always changing. So that's super, super important. And alongside that as well, of course, a willingness to learn. So we were talking about courses earlier and conferences, and because everything is changing so quickly, you need to keep up with that. And the only way to do that is to keep on top of everything that is changing. And I think the other thing maybe is about being creative. So a lot of people will obviously attribute a lot of the creativity to things like PR, the content, the social media. So that's obviously so, so important. And like Laura was saying earlier about standing out with like your CVs and things, but that doesn't necessarily just apply to those kind of more creative side of digital, because even in things like tech or PPC, you need to think outside the box, because with anything in marketing, what you think might work and like set processes and things like that, it's not going to work for everyone. So being able to have that kind of creative side as well, and being able to think outside the box in all areas of marketing is so important.
Moving on to industry challenges. So sorry, coming back to you again, Soph.
All right.
So from your experience, what are some of the challenges that women can face in digital?
So this is something that's quite close to my heart, because I've been in digital for about 5 years or 6 years or so now. I started in when I was about 19, and I have faced quite a lot kind of over the years in terms of these challenges. So I think the biggest challenge that I think women generally face in digital is kind of like the microaggressions, invalidation of like phrases like you're being overly sensitive or you're worrying too much about certain things, and having people come around to you and say things like that. That's like a big deal, because, you know, I'm worried for a reason. Like, don't like invalidate that kind of thing. And the other thing I've found a lot more, particularly when I was doing things like the content side of things before I was taking the lead on meetings and really kind of being face to face with clients, was if I ever was in a meeting or if I ever was on conference calls, kind of being spoken over and kind of feeling like you're being looked down on, especially by kind of like the more C-suite individuals. I think one experience I had was being referenced as the minutes girl and the tea lady whilst being in a meeting, and having to sit there and go, actually, I'm leading your entire campaign. And then they sit there a bit like, whoa, like that's yeah, sorry, but you know, you're a woman, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's one of those big things. And the other one as well, I think maybe a lack of self-confidence. I think a lot of women have this, particularly more of like the STEM subjects, so like the tech side of things in particular, because it is very male dominated, and having the kind of the confidence to really break through that and be like, you know what, this is really what I want to do, and I'm good at this, I'm good at tech, I'm good at PPC, I'm good at analytics, the things that are typically a lot more male dominated. That's a big challenge, and having to break down those barriers is difficult.
100%. I think the kind of having to back yourself is such a massive thing for women in kind of all walks of life within professionalism, but especially I think within our digital sphere, at any given point you have to really back yourself. And from kind of like applying for positions like right at the start, you've got to have the tenacity and like drive to say like, yes, I do have the skills to kind of go for that. And I think that that is something that women, we often undersell ourselves. We're really bad at kind of going like, yes, I'm an expert in this field, and like, yes, I can fulfill what needs to be done within this job. So I think right from the start through to when you're sat in corporate client meetings and saying like, you know, I run your account, at every stage you have to remember like, I am here to back myself. I know like I'm here for a reason, and know that your expertise kind of backs you up throughout that, no matter what you face.
Yeah, and then I think if we go back to the kind of representation issue that Sophie touched on earlier, that is definitely something that I struggled with a lot, especially earlier in my career. I was always interested in getting into the techie side of things, but I never saw my place there. I didn't really see that many female role models. I think it's because I wasn't really looking for it. So it wasn't until I started seeing, I mean, it's the women in tech SEO community has been such an inspiration to me. When I started at Absolute, Sophie was my manager. She was a massive inspiration to me as well. And it's just being able to picture yourself in those roles, because I think we do have potentially a little bit of an issue with fixed gender roles kind of within the industry as well. Like women tend to do more content-based roles. Guys are in the tech side and the web development, but just being able to picture yourself in other roles than that is really going to help us.
And I think like kind of follow on from what Sophie said about the microaggression, when you do face a lot of microaggression, I think it does knock your self-confidence a little bit. You know, like I've been in previous roles where I've been called bossy because I wanted to take the lead in something, or I've been called aggressive because I know what I'm talking about and I'm trying to showcase that. And I've been called a lot of things when I show my passion. People say that I'm sucking up and that I'm, you know, like a brown noser. And after being called those kind of names for a really long time, I started to shut off that part of my personality and work and kind of become like a people pleaser. And then all that happened is I stopped going for the stuff that I wanted, and I kind of lost myself and I lost my goals along the way. So I think a lot of the time it's very important to kind of, and I know it's bad that I'm saying this, but you kind of got to learn to shake it off and just remember why you're doing this. And you've just got to remind yourself of why you believe in yourself.
I think as well, Tiffany, from your perspective as well, that you did feel like that, but now you're in an environment that you are able to be yourself. You're able to push yourself forwards and do everything that you want to do. You found that thing that worked for you and where you can be yourself. And I think that's really important for people to understand and realise.
Yeah, 100%. It's actually coming to Absolute and showing this kind of side to myself and feeling like I can be myself again that kind of helped me recognize what I was doing, because I didn't realize I was doing it, if I'm being completely honest. I thought I was happy not going for the stuff that I wanted to do, and it was only coming into this supportive environment where I can feel like I'll be myself that I realized that's what I was doing.
Definitely. I think as well, so part of this is empowerment with everyone, not just women, but also all our colleagues, like everyone supporting one another. So has anyone got any experiences in that relation where they've had a situation where they've leaned on their colleagues to support them through the challenges?
I can come in with this one. Definitely. I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but Sophie has just been such an inspiration to me since I started at Absolute. I'd never seen somebody of like a similar age to me, with quite a similar personality as well, in like a leadership role. So I'd never been able to picture myself doing that. And kind of in the past couple of months, I actually moved up from the content team into the kind of SEO team. And it's made me really excited for the future.
Oh, thank you so much, Emma. That means a lot.
To be honest, I was kind of going to say Sophie as well, because I'm not in Sophie's team, and she supports me when I'm dealing with certain particular clients, and I think that's really important, because one thing that I do find with a lot of agencies is they stay in their own bubble of their team. PPC will support PPC, SEO will support SEO, and it's almost like the teams are competing against each other. But one of the things that I like about Absolute is I don't feel like that. I feel like we're all one team.
Yeah, just to add to that, I was going to say the same. Within like the PR team, the girls like Laura, Holly, Molly, Jazz, I just feel like whenever anyone gets a win, it just feels like a win for the team, and everyone's always so supportive of everyone's achievements. And I know that like whenever I've done something that I've felt proud of, like I don't even feel at previous workplaces, I felt a bit like awkward about shouting about it. Whereas at Absolute, I feel like I can just say to the team, like, oh my God, like we've done this amazing thing, and everyone just gets on board and celebrates it with you as a team, which I just think is such a nice environment to work in.
100%.
I don't feel like here. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that is definitely a way to kind of overcome challenges as well, is like recognizing where there is success and then celebrating that. And I think that is, from my perspective personally, an amazing way to foster that idea of an agency of growth and like women like striving for those higher positions or like better wins, because if you're supported along the way, you're going to get pushed further. And I think that is something that, like, no matter what workplace you're in, no matter what agency you're in, you should try and like do that towards your other colleagues to kind of support that progression further.
Yeah, and I was going to add as well, for me, like working here, it's like my first proper job, like an officey job, you know what I mean? And it can be quite intimidating. So have like everyone being really supportive and helpful, and even working from home, it can be quite challenging. But knowing you're literally like one call, one message away, and everyone is just so helpful and helping us learning as well. So yeah, it's really good.
And I feel like there's like no silly questions kind of thing, which I think is like a great thing. There's no silly suggestions. You can literally come up with like the maddest, most creative, weirdest idea, and people will be like, actually, yeah, that's mad, but maybe we can do it this way. Maybe we can do it this way. Or, you know, they can, like, everyone just comes together and like will support a crazy idea and not make you feel stupid for saying something, which again, like echoing what Laura said, it really like fosters creativity and growth.
Yeah, because I was going to say, even like when you get feedback here, or every time you get feedback is always in a positive way. It's always like, you know, this is something that you need to work on, but I really like how you're open to change, or I really like how adaptable you are. So it's not like, you know, you're rubbish, you need to fix all this stuff. It's like, you know, you've got your things you need to work on, which is normal for everyone. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, but, you know, this is why, you know, we know that you can do it, and we know that you can do it because of these reasons. And there's always like a positive spin. And I think like here as well, what we're saying about achievements, no achievement is more important than someone else's. Everyone's achievement is equally as important as each other. Every team achievement is equally as important as each other.
Well said there, Tiffany. So we'll move on to our next topic now. Is everyone ready to move on to the next one? Perfect. So our next topic today is thriving in digital. So this question is going to go to you, Emma. So how would you say the industry is changing?
I think we can look at how the industry is changing, but first it's really important to realize that digital is different to other industries. Like if you take engineering, for example, that has existed previously as a very male-dominated space. So women who are trying to break into that now are facing completely different challenges to us. I mean, the internet's only really been around since the 90s. So women have always been a part of the digital sphere. I think it is easier for us. That said, there are still some challenges, but I think there's really positive movements being made. And I think it's just about women supporting each other. Again, having positive role models. I think that is such a brilliant thing that's booming in the digital industry right now. Yeah, so it's just about having like positive female role models, being able to like, and you have to seek out for yourself. If you exist in a company where you don't have female role models that you can look up to, they're there online. Just look for the Women in Tech SEO community, they're brilliant. Look on Twitter, follow, just search anyone that's got SEO or PR in your name. You're going to find people that are putting themselves out there as role models. So it's definitely going to change for the better very soon.
Definitely. And it's all about the personal branding side of things as well, like Layla was touching on previously. And that's what a lot of women in tech are doing now, and women in SEO and women in marketing are doing. And they are all over Twitter. So there's all of these communities. So Arija's doing amazing things with the women in tech. You've got Aleda Solis really pushing kind of the training and the SEO side of things, and Lily Ray with the tech side of things, and Orit with the Python. There's just so many people out there that are just pushing everything and really inspiring women. And it's changing massively, and it's really becoming a really empowered female industry.
So then, are there any specific changes that anyone has seen in the past 5 years that they can really like kind of hone in on?
I think obviously from a company perspective, and I mean the company kind of reflects the wider industry in some regards, just seeing more women taking those senior positions within digital marketing is so inspiring, especially for new starters coming into the industry. As we've touched on before, kind of the female dominated spheres tend to be those more creative, the like sort of people like making the everyday happen, not always necessarily in those higher strategical positions. But even if you look at our company now, half of the top positions are women. So that's just an amazing, inspiring position to be in. And from someone looking to progress in the industry, having those female role models to look up to is such a massive thing.
I'm totally with you, Laura. Having those women in top positions is something that's really inspiring, and I'm quite lucky because while I haven't been in digital for a long time, I've come from a company that is completely run by women. So it's a global crafting company, and the owner she's quite a powerful figure in crafting. You might see her on the TV, can't say too much, but she is a figurehead for a lot of people, and pretty much every single top management position in that company was female, and about 75% of non-management was female. So to go in every day and have those people around you to uplift you and empower you was amazing. And to come to somewhere like Absolute where it's the same it's fab, it's amazing.
Definitely. And I think touching on what's kind of been said, like we're fortunate that we're working in an environment where we can see women day to day. That if, for example, there's women out there who are not in that kind of position, but looking to progress, or like looking to find the inspiration, like communities like the Women in Tech, like the Female Connective on Twitter and stuff like that. We're in digital so lucky to have that digital sphere, so that we can look towards like what's happening in other companies and try and kind of bring that into our day-to-day as well.
So, Sophia, this is one for you. So just kind of extending on from that. So how would you keep your creativity and focus fresh? We're talking about how the industry is really fast paced and everything like that. So how would you kind of recommend that we keep ourselves focused and yeah.
So yeah, as everyone mentioned, digital marketing is one of the industries that sees like rapid changes within a very short period of time. So that means that you need to enter the industry and really need to be constantly on top of things. You really need to love the job, and you need to have that motivation and desire to learn new things and constantly learn anything that has been updated within your field. So I personally started and I did a master's degree in digital marketing. So I had the basic knowledge, but I would say that practice is the one thing that will give you the knowledge that is desired within the actual agency to work. So if you come across any issues and you simply just Google that problem, you'll come across a plethora of like blog posts, videos, and they will be so explanatory that you don't even need to have that exclusive digital marketing master's degree. So if you just Google things, you'll be able to find everything that you're looking for. And Sophie mentioned that there are a lot of courses out there. There's just like paid courses, free courses, the Udemy that she mentioned, it's really good training field. And you can always sign up to, like, you scroll through your social media, like on Twitter, on LinkedIn, you'll definitely come across some webinar, some podcasts that you can listen. So everything is just out there. You just really need to want to learn. In terms of creativity, I would say it's down to your day-to-day tasks. So what are you watching on TV? What are you reading? Anything can just like influence and give you ideas of how to implement that into your work, because that's the beauty of digital marketing.
Definitely. I think creativity, especially where we're all work from home, we're all remote now as well, just maintaining that kind of flow and really being excited about everything. It is hard, but I think because our industry changes so much and there's so much to learn, it just makes it so much easier. I mean, Rebecca, for you, for example, you write content day in and day out. And how do you keep that kind of creativity going? Because it must be really hard.
It's definitely a challenge. I found, especially at the beginning of lockdown with everything else going on, it was quite difficult to be positive and come to work every day with a clear mindset of what you're going to do and how you're going to be creative in what you're writing when the world is quite depressing. But it was sort of trying to dig out, as you said, on Twitter, all those positive inspirations, all those positive people that you can sort of lean on. And I think having regular meetings with everyone and obviously seeing everybody else almost helped to give that sort of extra boost of creativity when you needed it, because everyone was in the same boat. So if you were struggling with a topic or you were lacking any sort of inspiration for a blog post, you could say to someone, look, I've got this idea, but how do we go about executing it? And you could talk to other people, you could talk to, especially in this company, different members of different teams, and it just made it easier because it felt like you weren't alone. So it made the creative process a lot easier.
I think this draws me back to my next question, really. So we talk about, training and keeping ourselves up to date with everything, and that's for us to be able to reach our full potential. So Sophie, how would you go about ensuring that each team member reaches their full potential?
I think the biggest thing is to understand everyone's individual strengths and their individual weaknesses, what their areas of expertise are, and how we can just heighten that even more, really, like you say, with the training, with the webinars, but just generally being able to identify what that is and then bring that out and bring it to the forefront as well. Encouragement, giving staff and the team the confidence in themselves, and not just individually, but the team as a whole, and really, really bringing that again into the limelight. And yeah, any more kind of inspiration, bringing these inspiring people in. We're all inspiring women. We all do amazing things. We've all got our own brilliant kind of areas and niches and things like that. So just pulling that together and just bringing that communication via Teams or meetings, Zooms, things like that, where we can't be together at the moment. And that's really how we're going to get everyone to reach their full potential. It's a team effort.
I think that's so like nail on the head. And like personally, like what Rebecca was saying about like leaning on people really resonated with me. And I think that kind of typically women are, we like the community aspect of things, like, you know, we like to have that kind of more shared way of working. And I think that especially in the work from home environment, like that can be a bit difficult to cut through sometimes and to kind of keep that inspiration. But 100% agree with what Sophie was saying, in the sense that like finding those strengths and like really honing in on those is a great way to kind of cut through any kind of like negativity or doubt that comes with like being isolated at home. Because I think that when we're not in an office environment where we're constantly talking to each other, like it's easy to get kind of like down in the dumps with any negativity. And I think that that's something that here at Absolute, like I've definitely noticed is something that is positively like pushed through, is that any strengths that we do have are celebrated, and like we're given opportunities to enhance those through training. And like a great experience we've had as well is the confidence training with Kirsty. Like I think that that's really helped like so many of us just to kind of realize our potential and like really sit with that and really kind of like foster that, because we've all got it within us, and like we've all got the potential to kind of like really showcase that and then be an inspiration to new women like wanting to join the industry or progress further. And I think that that is just should be on everyone's like computer screen as like a reminder throughout the day, like you have really got the expertise to push forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing I've learned from working with Kirsty over especially the last few weeks has been stop humble bragging. Like if you're good at something and you know you're good at something, you've done an awesome job, brag about it. There is nothing wrong with self-confidence and just being like, just knowing you're awesome and putting it out there to the world. It's so important.
Yeah, 100%, because you know someone else who's doing a worse job than you is bragging about it. So you might as well brag about your excellent achievements.
Our next topic of discussion today is defining success. So my question goes to Jasmine. Jasmine, what tips do you have for maintaining the balance between striving for success and not burning out?
I think with social media, it's one of those things where you're constantly online and in that space of being online and in social and in the trends and everything like that. So it's kind of 24/7. And even when you're not necessarily looking for something on social, in the back of your mind, you always are, and always trying to find the next thing you can post about, or the next thing, like, you know, you can send to a colleague like, oh, this looks cool, and things like that. So yeah, definitely in some ways it kind of follows you around and can be hard to escape that mindset of like, okay, this is work related, and okay, this is for you, my use, like for fun. So like, for example, I personally find it really difficult to put my phone down, and people often say like, you use your phone too much, or like get off your phone, because it's literally attached to my hands all the time. But it feels really unnatural to not have it there and not to be scrolling and not to be looking for the next thing that like we can kind of capitalize on. So I would say like 9 times out of 10 I literally don't even realize I pick up my phone as much as I do, and my daily screen time is like awful. It's definitely more about breaking the habit, and from a self-care perspective especially, I think it's good to have some downtime from social and from like your devices and from your computer in general, and just from any type of screen, just to give yourself a bit of time to recharge and kind of regain that interest and creativity that you might have lost. You kind of get into encapsulated within it and what's going on, which is obviously easier said than done, but I definitely think that giving yourself that time to unwind from it and step away from how fast-paced everything is, particularly on social media, is the best way to kind of battle that.
So in terms of the not burning out thing, I think there's a lot that can be said for just a bit of self-care, really. So in terms of like personally myself, I remember before the like pandemic hit, I used to like get up in the morning, leave the house within 15 minutes, like rush to the gym, rush straight into work, and I never really had any time to wind down. Like my winding down time was like sitting on a cram tube. Whereas now I think because of the extra time and because of not having to commute, I've tried to incorporate a sort of morning routine. So I'll get up like a little bit earlier, like an hour earlier. I'll have like time to make myself a coffee. I'll like go through my to-do list for the day. I'll do like a little home workout, like make myself a smoothie, whatever. And I just think that is so important in terms of avoiding burnout. Like, to echo what Jazz said, we're constantly on in our industry because it's digital and it's so fast moving. We're always looking for the next big thing, keeping up with stuff, which is obviously great, and it's part of why we love what we do. But at the same time, I think it's so important just to take a bit of time out for yourself and like put your phone down and just do things that like make you happy, and just have a little self-care. I don't know, have a bath, have a smoothie, do a workout, have a glass of wine, maybe not in your morning routine, but
depends how you're feeling.
Yeah, exactly. It depends what kind of a day you've had, to be honest. But yeah, I definitely think that in terms of avoiding burnout, you do need to do those things for yourself, and switching off from work is just as important as being present at work, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think actively pulling yourself away from the screens as well, because I think where we're all remote now, it's so easy to just be like, oh, just quickly check my email because my laptop's there. Or if you use your laptop or computer for watching things like Netflix and stuff, you can still see the notifications and you are always switched on. So just actually turning these things off and having that kind of break at the end of the day or at weekends and things like that is just, yeah, it's all about self-care.
I think as well, from something that we've adapted here at Absolute, is our Wednesday morning Absolute pumped sessions, half an hour of just, you know, clearing your mind and just spending some time on you. And I know some of us probably don't appreciate it the next couple of days after, but yeah, I think it's just really, really good that we're focusing on, you know, that aspect of ourselves as well, rather than just purely like work faced.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in the company meeting on a Friday as well, the Friday Feel Good, that's all about positives. It's not a company meeting to sit there and chase people up on stuff. It's look at all these awesome things we've done this week, because there's always so much to talk about. And that's really nice. It's a bit of downtime. We'll have a nice drink at the end of the week, things like that together, and all kind of just communicating and having a chat and a laugh as well. So.
And I think the most important thing to preventing burnout is listen to your body and listen to your mind. You know, if you've got a plan for the week and you're like, oh, I want to learn about conversion rate optimization, for example, so I'm going to do that course this weekend, but then it gets to the weekend and you're struggling to get out of bed, or you turn on your computer and you're struggling to concentrate, that's your body and your mind telling you that you're burning out and that you need some time off. So I think rather than forcing yourself to do that sort of thing, you need to listen to your body and say, right, my body is telling me that I need a break, so I'm not going to do anything this weekend.
Absolutely. Like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, I mean, I constantly tell myself that every day. Like, you've got to put in so that you can put out. And I think that when it comes to like striving towards a goal as well, in terms of like professional development, it's quite easy to get kind of like caught up in like one massive goal that seems really difficult to achieve. But you have to remember that those everyday steps are going towards that goal. And I think personally for me, something that I find quite positive to help me kind of get towards those bigger things is to kind of put in like smaller, more achievable little goals or pointers to get to, so that, you know, at the end of the month when you reflect and you think, oh gosh, like I feel so far away from achieving this goal, you can look back and go, oh, actually no, like I did, you know, complete that massive deadline. I did kind of connect to someone on Twitter who will help me develop my career. I did kind of like push myself out of my comfort zone doing something. And I think as women, we have to take time to reflect and kind of look at those smaller goals that got us to where we're kind of going, because it's really easy to kind of like put the blinkers on and think, you know, I can't get there, it's too far, it's too hard. But actually, like, we've all come so far, and I think that's a massive thing towards helping yourself kind of develop towards those like career progression goals and not kind of like burn out on the way, like reminding yourself how far you've come.
And I think on the other side as well, if you do set yourself some goals and you don't reach those goals, don't beat yourself up. I'm terrible for it. I do it all the time, and it's one of the things that I'm learning to not do. You know, you can't always control your environment. You can't always control what happens. If your body's burnt out, that's completely out of your control. So if you don't reach your goal because you've had to take that time out and had to do that self-care, you know, don't beat yourself up about it. It happens to everybody.
I think as well, one of the struggles has been recently, well, in the last year, I can't believe how quick it's gone, to be honest. You know, we're all working from home, and, you know, we've had to adapt to that. I think, Rebecca, you mentioned that earlier on, about obviously maybe the challenges that you've faced from working from home. So how would you say that you can maintain your energy and motivation?
I think it's sort of echoing on from what everyone else has said, sort of listening to your mind, listening to your body, that kind of thing. I find personally writing as much content as I do every single day, I can get burnt out quite quickly if I'm not on top of how I'm feeling sort of mentally. So lockdown sort of brought about this new meditation that I found. I've got really deep into meditation and sort of taking that 5-10 minutes either in a lunch break or at the end of the day or before work to just sort of center myself and sort of understand that, yes, I do have a lot going on at work, and yes, there is a lot going on in life in general, but to sort of get back to sort of your core mental state and how you are really sort of helps you to push through and be creative and be not only there for yourself but for other people as well. I feel like you can't fully understand and help other people if you're not there yourself mentally. So taking that time to spend 5-10 minutes just on yourself can make a whole difference. I've also found routine as well and hobbies, spending time doing things that you love to do. Like I know my photography helps me stay creative outside of work as well as inside work, and having workouts throughout the day and just being on top of your everyday routine like you would be if you were in the office really helps to sort of center you and make sure you're working the way you would want to.
Definitely. I think that whole point of routine is so important because it's something I personally really struggled with, especially at the beginning of like the first lockdown. And I was like, okay, I'm working from home. I can get up a little bit later than I normally would. And then it starts to be like, oh, I'm not going to put jeans. I'm going to wear trackies today. Then it's like, I'm not going to wear makeup again. Oh, and then you then start using like your day-to-day life almost like you would at the weekend, and then you're not feeling as productive, you're not feeling as creative. So then pulling that back and going, right, actually I'm going to put a bit of a routine in, I'm going to dress as if I was going to work and things like that. It just makes a whole wealth of difference. It really does.
Yeah, and then I think how you spend your free time as well. It's really important to have downtime, but I realized that I was getting in this awful habit of watching trash on Netflix in the evening. And then it was making me feel worse because I was having the rest I needed, but then I was not feeling productive at all, especially not being able to go out and see my friends. And I had such an outgoing, active life before this. For me, it's been finding things that you can do that don't take a lot of energy, they don't take a lot of time. So for me, that's knitting. So
I love that.
Knitting, and I also love painting furniture. Like I'm a furniture restorer. So that's a bit more of a big project, but it's allowing yourself to do little bits of that. You don't have to take on a whole massive project. You can do a couple rows of knitting. You can strip back some varnish from a piece of furniture and that's your evening. It's just letting yourself take baby steps.
I think what I'm kind of getting the sense from this is that it's not about just finding passion about what we do at work. It's also finding that something that we're passionate about outside of work. You know, you've got to find that to be able to, you know, be creative, do the things that you want to do on a day-to-day basis, you know. So I think my next question is going to be, Tiff, what advice would you give to women who have started to lose their passion?
I think it's always really difficult when you lose your passion because digital marketing is so difficult and we face so many challenges in it. that the only thing that can get you through is your passion. And it did happen to me. I did start to lose my passion, and I remember, you know, at one point I was on the phone to my family, like, did I make a mistake? I've sacrificed so much for this, you know, and it's just not working out for me, you know, and I was about ready to give up, I'm going to be completely honest. But then I kind of took a step back, and I realized that when I started going into digital marketing, I came into digital marketing for me because it was what I wanted to do. And I had a lot of goals and a lot of aspirations. And somewhere along the way, I stopped doing digital marketing for me, and I started becoming what other people wanted me to be. I started shutting off part of my personality. I stopped not going for stuff because I thought that people would judge me for it, or was worried about what people would say for me. And I think once I realized that if I want my passion back, I need to go back to being myself. I need to remind myself of why I wanted to do this. I started looking at things in digital marketing that I enjoyed more, you know, and kind of sort of put the stuff that I didn't enjoy on the back burner and started following the stuff that I enjoyed more, and that kind of reignited my passion as well.
Fantastic. So talking about like progression and success and things like that, has anyone got any examples of where they possibly you know, stopped themselves from progressing due to misconceptions, and what they did to overcome that?
Yeah, I can jump in with this one. I think definitely for me, coming from, so my background's in journalism, is in content, and I've always seen myself as that's my role. It's related to my degree, and I just felt like if I stepped away from that for a second, that I'd failed. And I started to see myself kind of wanting to get more involved in the tech side of things, but I just felt like that's not me. That's not my space. So it's just really allowing your interests to guide you, and not thinking, oh, I can't do that. That's not for me. Just take it a day at a time. Like if something interests you, read about it, and you keep doing it little by little, and eventually you will start to see yourself where you need to be. And that's different for everyone.
And I think for me, like, I always wanted to do a keynote speaking thing, and I always wanted to do a training thing, but I never really had the confidence to go for it. I like helping other people, but I was always worried that if I put myself out there and did that sort of thing, people would kind of see me as, you know, like pushy and all those kinds of things. But now that I'm going for it, it is hard, and I do get nervous, and I do worry about that sort of stuff, but I just kind of focus on myself and what I want, and just say, but this is what I want to do. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100% makes sense. And I think that kind of, for me personally, the initial kind of setbacks were in those like initial stages when you're applying for jobs. So you can like, often you'd look at a job application and it'd be an amazing agency, it'd be an amazing opportunity, and you'd look at it and then you'd think, oh, I can do all that, I can do all that. Oh, but there's one point that, oh, I haven't got that skill, or like, oh, I don't feel like I've got that. And then you'll go, oh, I shouldn't apply. And it's like, you sure as hell know that your male counterpart doesn't care and is just applying. Like, we need to kind of like almost like grab life a bit by the balls and just go for it. Like, you know that if you've got the kind of like drive and the passion and the ideas and the creativity to like fulfill a role, and that can be an entry-level role, like career progression, going up into management, if you've got the drive to show that, like, that is the key thing. Like, don't worry about if there's one little skill on the job application that you haven't got. Like, life's too short, just go for it. And I think that like that is a big thing within the industry at the moment. Like, digital marketing asks for a lot. Like, in a lot of different roles, you're kind of asked to be like a master in everything in some capacities. And I think that that can be a bit daunting for women looking to progress or looking to enter into the career. But again, just kind of, it goes back to kind of like knowing your own worth and knowing your expertise and like backing yourself to go for opportunities. Because if you don't apply or if you don't try, like, you're never going to get it.
And I think the same goes for years of experience, because it's actually funny you should say that, because I almost didn't apply for this job at Absolute Digital because they put 3 to 4 years experience on, and I hadn't quite reached that yet, so I almost didn't reply. And then I kind of said to myself, do you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And then I went into the interview thinking there's no way I'm going to get the job, and then I got offered the job. So I think that's a good example of, you know, sometimes they put these things on as a guide, but that doesn't mean that that's the most important thing to them.
Yeah, definitely. I think having a great support network around you as well, and I find we definitely have that at Absolute. I mean, even from my point of view, I started here at Absolute 5 years ago as a copywriter, and that's what I love doing. My background, same as Emma, was in journalism. Content was my thing. Like, that's what I felt happy doing. I was quite happy in my little bubble. And then Lou, really, she's been like a real big part of like pushing my career progression forward over like the last 5 years or so, because then she gave me the opportunity to become an account manager. And my first reaction when they asked if that was something I wanted to do was, no, I don't want to be on the phone, like absolutely not, that's terrifying. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and Lou was really like, you know what, you'd be really good at it, like you're great talking to people, things like that. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then again, Lou continues to just like provide that support in terms of, we really want you to talk at like an event, and we really want you to do training here and go and join this course and all of these different kind of things. And suddenly I'm looking after the SEO team and I'm talking at Brighton SEO in March, and like, how has that happened? And it's all down to, like, even when I've not potentially had confidence in myself and my own career progression, having that support network behind it, with obviously Lou being a driving force, but all you guys as well, just being like, you know what, Sophie, you can do it. And I feel like that's something at Absolute, we do that between us as a group generally, like everyone's really supportive of each other. So Daisy, obviously you've been at Absolute for what, about 8 years now, like longer than any of us. So what do you see Absolute doing for women in the digital space in the future, and what have you seen them do over the whole time you've been here?
So from a personal perspective, so Absolute has been the hub of my success. I started with the agency, it's almost 9 years ago now. Wow. So at the time I was partway through my studies, and Absolute supported me all the way through, and that's allowed me to progress my career to pretty much where I am today. I've always been like surrounded by strong female leadership, and I think that's what has driven me. But ultimately, the support that Ben and Lou have always provided me with has got me to where I am today. And I think we're also seeing that with female progression at Absolute. We've been given the power to go out and do what we're most passionate about. And I mentioned earlier that we're now thriving with more women on the team than we've ever before. So I think that that's massive.
Definitely. And I mean, even thinking back to like 5 years ago when I first started at Absolute, I think there was like a total of like 3 or 4 women in the whole company or something crazy like that. And now look at us, there's so many. But I think as well, in terms of what we're doing with pushing our amazing women at Absolute, is like I was talking about the talks earlier. So really, I mean, Tiff, you're doing a keynote speak, aren't you, at an event?
I am next month, the first one that I'm going to be doing, and it's really nerve-wracking, because for me, you know, I always kind of had low self-esteem, and I've always kind of struggled with that even since I was a kid. So for me to kind of push myself and put myself forward for that, it was really, really hard for me to do. But now that I've done it, like, I'm so proud of myself. And I think like that's going to be what's going to help me to put myself out there.
I think you're doing incredible. But I also think as well, like, I know, you know, this is International Women's Day, but also I think, you know, it's key to give credit to also the men that are Absolute, because, you know, without them as well, you know, we couldn't do what we do as much as they couldn't do what they do without us. So I think, you know, it's all about empowering each other, and they're all so supportive as well. They're so supportive, so that's fantastic.
I definitely agree. I think every single person at Absolute Digital is just amazing.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like I only started, I think, about a month ago. I think it's 4 weeks at the end of this week, and within the first day, I just felt this overwhelming sense of like community, and like everyone kind of feels, this sounds so cheesy, but like everyone does kind of feel like a little family, because I feel so comfortable just reaching out to each and every person in the team, and I know like everyone's names obviously within the first week, and yeah, it's just such a nice supportive environment to be in, and I already feel so part of it, which is the testament to how welcoming and amazing the agency is.
Yeah, 100%. I think like so much of that as well is down to the fact that like we have opportunities to kind of socialize as well within work. And I know that seems really weird when you think like we're talking through our computer screens, like how can you be socializing? But when we do things like the one-on-one lunch dates where you like basically effectively have a date with somebody who's not in your team, so like there's an opportunity to have that social connection. I think opportunities like that are what build a really supportive community, and like everybody's working towards the same goals and the same aims, and everybody feels supported within that. Like that's such a massive thing. And I think especially for women in an industry where there is that kind of connection and support, like that is where we thrive. And I think that's like something that's really being built within the industry. And I think that like I hope that our like what Absolute is doing is an inspiration to other industries as well, agencies as well. And like an opportunity for like not just women but everybody to kind of see that like if you put into your team you get so much more out. Like again, you can't pour from an empty cup, and like your team is your biggest resource, so like supporting your team will make like everything that you do better.
And I think the best thing about Absolute is you can be honest. Like when I was talking about the keynote speaker, I remember I said to both Stephen and Miguel on my team, I was like, I want to do it, but I'm nervous because, you know, I don't have the self-esteem to go forward. And they kind of pushed me to do it. And I think being able to have that honest conversation with people in your team and people in your company is important. And I'm glad that at Absolute, I feel comfortable to be able to talk about this kind of things.
Girl power. So thank you everyone for joining us today on our International Women's Day episode of What the Fuck Work From Home. We will be continuing our chat on Twitter after this, so please feel free to join us, and we'll look forward to carrying on this conversation.